Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Today in the studio, I have as my guest Mandisa Thomas. Hello, Mandisa. And I have Kelly King.
Hi, Gigi.
Hello. I have Kelly King. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, everybody.
And once I had Mandisa and Kelly, I could not do the show without completing the Council of Kellys. So hello,
Ooh,
Kelly Laughlin.
thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Good to see the three of us together again. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is
exactly.
This is going to be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to call Kelly Laughlin Kelly L and Kelly King Kelly K, and you can call me Kelly P, since we've got three Kellys in here.
Sounds good to me.
It's
Go
so
ahead.
unusual just to have three Kellys, but to have three of us be atheist content creators is just amazing to me that there's three of us.
And on top of that, we all spell our names differently.
Differently, yeah.
Yes. Means we're each unique.
Okay. Today we are going to talk about voting rights, and this is a topic that I don't think is getting discussed enough. When we had the No Kings rally, the sign that I carried said "Hands off our voting rights." Although my sign was a handmade sign and I have no artistic ability whatsoever, so it's just black Sharpie. It's nothing fancy, but it's something that I really wanted to talk about, and I was so happy that Mandisa said that she would come on and talk about that, and Kelly too, and Kelly as well. So let's start with you, Mandisa. Tell us what's going on with voting rights and how are the Republicans threatening voting rights?
So, for anyone who is not tuned into what's happening ever since, what has been happening ever since 2020, 2020, January 20th, 2025, and even let's say January 6th, 2021, right? But there is now an intentional suppression of voting, especially in poor communities of color, and definitely rural areas. There has been intentional voter suppression and getting rid of polling places that are now in it, that are now inaccessible to people, those persons with disabilities. And again, folks with not much means to be able to get to those voting places, therefore allowing certain districts, especially in red states where folks, the representatives are majority Republican, to get their folks in, and make legislation that is very, very harmful. And so again, we can't prove that this happened on the federal level, although there is some data which shows that there was some suppression in the last presidential election. There's some data that shows it, but with I think some polling places not turning in their counts, when they should have, or it not being reported at all. So, and this goes back to the history of, before the civil rights, when, especially when Black communities were given these horrendous tests in order to prove that they could vote. And so there's definitely a history of voter suppression and voting rights being not just withheld. Cynthia's so funny.
She always be saying that.
Yeah, but there has been an intentional. There's definitely been you see this in different counties or in different states, different counties, where you have some folks on the Republican side who are challenging the legalities and the legitimacy of certain residents to see if if they can vote or not, especially if you're a Democrat. And we've seen this a lot in during and leading up to President Biden's term in 2020, and also during his presidential term, where there have been serious suppression efforts, especially in your states like Florida and in other southern states. And we truly do. We can surmise that this is partly what led to the current president being elected. In addition to, unfortunately, folks turning out, to vote for that person, which is, of course, mind-boggling to us. And I'm just speaking as an individual. Yes, I am representing Black non-believers, our organization, but also as an individual who we definitely see that the astonishingly high numbers of how this individual was elected. Again, there definitely is evidence of suppression. I can only speculate that there has been manipulation, but I can't actually say that it was, but I do speculate. I think we all do. And it's a problem because we already saw Roe v. Wade be stripped away on a federal level. We are seeing, we are seeing benefits, food benefits for the economically disadvantaged disappearing in front of our eyes. Right. We're also seeing the firing and layoffs of federal employees, a majority of whom are Black and other people of color. They said they were going to get rid of their DEI
hires.
Right. Yeah. And folks who were very well qualified to serve in their positions were fired or let go. And this is what happens when people either don't vote or they vote for a party which clearly, or an individual that clearly does not have their interest in mind. And if I sound a little hoarse, that's because I have a little cold. Kelly and I just came back. Kelly K and I just came back from our annual BNC con. And so with weather changes and such, I'm a little hoarse. So
sniffles.
Yeah.
You mentioned the SNAP benefits lapsing for a lot of people, and it's really been bothering me. I just did a little bit of research on this one, and I found out that 20% of SNAP recipients are the elderly. So we're talking about people's grandmothers and grandpas are getting cut off from food here. This is, and I don't think people realize how many people it is that are just like grandma and grandpa that are losing their food benefits. So we need to be out there and fighting for these people, because a lot of them don't have the ability to fight for themselves. And a further 10% of people getting SNAP are also disabled too. So, I mean, it's people like us need to stand up and fight for them, because like I say, a lot of them don't have the ability to do it for themselves.
No.
And they're also targeting healthcare. They're trying to get health, by trying to eliminate Obamacare. They're trying to take healthcare away from the poorer section of the country. And I can't help but wonder if the real point is to kill off the non-millionaires. I don't know.
That exactly seems that way to me. But the one thing is, it's people that's already struggling before this happened. So now it's going to make it somebody that makes a amount of money like me that's struggling, because sometimes I'm supposed to make a decent amount of money. I work for the automotive company, and many times I'm sitting there like, how am I going to pay some stuff? There's no way that I work for an automotive company and still have a hard time, because they don't care. It's only that 1% that they care about. And it's always been that way. It's just getting worse because we've allowed them to have a foothold in this economy. I don't know. But we talked about Trump and stuff earlier. He said it on an interview. If Elon did not help me, I would not be your president. And that's sad. Like he's admitting things that he is doing wrong. And what's happening is they're like, oh, we love our president because he's honest.
Uh-huh.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I don't know how people
Joke.
think he's honest, but yeah, that's a weird perception to me that so many people out there say that.
I've been one that had to receive help. I had children. I worked 2 jobs and still had to get help. But you have to work. And if you don't work, you don't qualify. If you don't do these guidelines that they have, they're not going to give you anything. They will cut you
Mandisa,
off in a minute.
we're getting echo from Kelly on yours. Kelly and Mandisa are in the same place, and I'm getting a bit of echo of Kelly.
I'm going to try to go if I can go on the front.
There we go. Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
If I can go on the front. Hold on.
Oh, okay. All right. Mandisa, so yeah, go ahead and speak to what Kelly just said.
Yeah, I just muted myself, so Kelly could have stayed where she was. But Cynthia in the chat brought up a very good point about a lot of these legislators at the behest of President Trump is trying to redistrict. They're trying to they're gerrymandering. They are
that was the other thing I wanted to talk about.
To give them a favor in the midterm elections, because they were actively trying to prevent what happened this past Tuesday or on Tuesday.
One thing that's go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish.
No, I just said, they are this idea that folks are not going to fight back. You could have stayed right there.
I think part of it is a misperception that more of America is on their side than they realize. Then less of America is on their side than they realize. They think that their mandate is larger than it is.
Well, one thing that I find profoundly odd is how much we have come full circle. I went to law school in Texas, and I started in 1985, and I graduated in 89. In 89. And one of my law professors was telling us about how he had been asked by the state to draw a district in Killeen, Texas, that would have a majority of Black voters to give Black voters more power in Killeen. And he said he couldn't do it because it being a military town, the people were more homogenous than most cities. There was not a Black section in the city that he could draw a district like that. He said, I can draw a district that has a majority of minorities, but not a district that is majority Black. And so that's what he ended up doing, was giving them a district that was a majority of minorities. But to know that the state in the late 1980s was actively trying to give voting power to minorities, and now we've come full circle and they're trying to take it back again. That blows my mind.
Yeah, it does seem like we're slipping back downhill quite a bit over the last, I don't know, 10 months or so.
I have said this before, is that many times it look as though when it came to the civil rights and stuff, they just gave certain people rights to pacify them. The marches, they got tired of the marches and all this stuff. So then, hey, let's just shut them up, give them these rights. But really, it's like, are we going to work to take them back away? Because even when it came to the Juneteenth, we were fighting against Black Lives Matter, against all the police brutality. Next thing you know, they're giving the Juneteenth off. That was just to shut us up. I noticed that, and I was like, no, I want more than that. I want rights to be a Black person. Shouldn't have to worry about being scared to get and driving down the street. I shouldn't be scared of that, but I am.
We do have a little bit of light on the horizon as far as the redistricting, though, with Proposition 50 in California.
Right.
So we're going to add a couple more districts in there. I know we're going backwards in Texas, but right. But at least we're seeing at least some movement in in favor of progressiveness, let's say. So yeah, I think, when the pendulum swings one way, it swings back it's just the same the other way, and the farther it swings in one direction, the farther it comes back. So I think we might be at that pivot point where we're going to start seeing a little bit of kickback to what's been happening. I've been waiting for our current administration to go too far, and I think they did it in the first week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So and it woke a lot of people up. Like I didn't vote for that. There was a lot of, let's face it, there was a lot of one issue voters. I voted for him because he was going to stop abortion. Right. There was a lot of people I heard say that. Right. But they didn't vote. They didn't vote for ICE to be out in the city streets hunting people down. They didn't vote for tariffs. They didn't vote for a lot of the stuff that he's doing. And I think, like I said, I think a lot of people have woken up since then. I don't think he would win the election today. I honestly don't.
Maya makes a good point. California balances out Texas, but all the southern states are trying to redistrict. How do we counter that? Mm-hmm. I am fearing what could happen in my own state of Alabama. Right now in Alabama, Birmingham is primarily a Democratic area, and that is primarily because there is a large Black population in Birmingham. Where I live in Huntsville is purple area. It's a very mixed area. There's a lot of professional people here, but there's also a lot of people here that have been Republicans, to their great granddaddies. And so I fear that Birmingham is going to be destroyed.
Well, if we can take any lessons from what happened on Tuesday, is that folks will need to get involved if they can run for office. It's not as difficult as many people would think. And there is a resource on our side. There is there's organizations like the Center for Free Thought Equality, which is the C4 wing of the American Humanist Association. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're a non-religious or progressive person and you want to run for office, they can train you and offer resources on how to run. So there is now is going to be more important that we are staying vigilant and paying attention to local elections and on the state levels as well. And try to, if you can't get involved, at least support and also make yourself known to the candidates who your representatives. And we can do that as as content creators, non-religious content creators, leaders of non-religious 501c3s. We can let them know that we represent a larger demographic and one that is still growing. So not just, speaking up, but also getting more involved is going to be important now more than ever. So we counter that by continuing to stay active, continuing to put our feet, keep the boots on the ground and, and continuously, and staying alert and aware for more than just the presidential election. That is going to make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Purple's comment goes right along with what you just said, Mandisa. What happened on Tuesday is Republicans got the same 30 to 35% that they always get, but a lot more people turned out to vote Democrat rather than sitting out as they usually do.
Yeah. And it's No, go ahead, Kelly.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You had the thought. I don't want to take it away from you.
No, I was just saying that it does. I just hope that in the future that it does not take such a visceral reaction to what is happening, because during the presidential campaign, folks were sounding the alarm about Project 2025. We were all doing it. Mm-hmm. We were, as much as that person tried to say they knew nothing about it, everything out of their mouth is a lie.
Yeah.
So it's like, they spelled out everything that they were going to do and what they planned to do, and a lot of what they're doing was outlined in that manifesto.
Yeah.
And so it's a shame that, unfortunately, for many of us, it takes for us to get involved when something directly impacts us. And that should not be the case. It's important that we are looking out for each other beyond what may directly impact us, because someday it might. So it's important to remain on the front, again, remain on the front lines, remain aware, and continue to vote and continue to work and move progressively so that this does not happen again.
Kelly King, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the fact, like she talked about the 2025 thing, but even now with him building the bunker in the ballroom right after the plans to cut SNAP, and you get all of these different organizations who are hiring, who are basically the ones like Walmart and all these Amazon. These are the people that are on SNAP that work for these companies, but they're giving money to build the ballroom, but not making sure that their people have a living wage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all a domino effect and everything.
Let them meet ballrooms.
Yeah, and that's more important to them. And you got a middle class people sticking together and working through to help. Because I've given money to a couple of organizations. I've done it already to help feed people. I shouldn't have to do that. I don't mind doing it, but I shouldn't have to do it. And like she talked, we have to stick up. Like Cynthia said, we have to speak up and stand up. It's going to take everybody. And it's also going to take, and I said this before, is that the sad thing is that a lot of white women don't understand he's coming after you too.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of times they don't look at that. I'm like, wait, that's abortion right, is your rights too. And even though I'm not dealing with that because I'm menopausal and all that stuff already, I do have children that way. And he's trying to take away their rights. And that's scary. So,
well, in addition to that, all of the attacks on the transgender community are indirect attacks on women in general.
Yeah.
The whole idea that we're going to make sure that we keep trans women out of, or trans girls out of girls' sports is a backdoor way to try to examine girls' genitals in order to participate in sports.
Because I think they're making them take tests or something to prove
that you're a girl.
And some women have some people found out that they were intersect, didn't even know it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's not a way to find out.
Mm-hmm.
To take a sport. That's scary to me. It's really scary to me.
But women are really the target of all of the movement against the transgender community, because they don't care about the transgender people. I mean, that's less than 1% of the population.
They have to have somebody to blame though for everything.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
So there's got to be somebody who's tearing down the moral fabric of our society that's causing all of our problems, And without that scapegoat, they have a hard time gaining any ground with their followers, right? Because that's the whole thing of that they prey on people's victimhood. I worked really hard my whole life and I deserve this. And these people are different than me. So they're taking away what I deserve, and they're preying on that victimhood and turning people against the better things in our society by using it.
But what is different between now and the 60s? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
This person is black, so they are taking away my rights. This person is gay, they're taking away my rights. It's the same thing. It's the recycle. It's
this
When people
person
gonna
that's
wake
Jewish
up?
is taking away my rights. Right? It's just
When you gonna wake up? Well, not us, but when are people gonna wake up and realize that it's the government trying to come after us?
you can go. It just runs inside. You go all the way back to the know nothings in the 1850s, and all these Catholics are coming over here and taking away our rights. You know, so it just cycles through America every 30, 40 years, unfortunately. And people do need to stand up, and I just want to mention that because a lot of people think it's really daunting, standing up and doing something, but you don't have to do a lot. You can just make a phone call, write a letter, send an email, donate $5. Every little tiny bit helps, and that's all some people are capable of doing. It's just a little bit. But I always say, and if you listen to me a lot, you're probably sick of me saying it, every little candle lights a dark corner of the world. So be one of those little candles and light that little corner of your world.
I like that, Kelly, because
Yeah.
that's something I've been frustrated with lately. Is my channel has plateaued and has been kind of stuck where it is for about a year now. And I've been wondering, is my voice not needed anymore? Have people heard it and decided, that's enough? But no, I think, that gives me reason to keep going.
Yeah,
I
good.
feel the same about the Black Non-Believers channel.
Good.
Like we've been stuck at like 3,500 for a minute, and I'm like, what's going on?
3,500? That's all you've got?
Yeah, just about. I might be a little more, but I believe it's about that much.
Well,
Okay.
everybody
Anybody
watching.
here that's not subscribed
Yes,
to Black Non-Believers?
Well, to
I
be,
was just going to say
to
the same
be
thing.
fair,
Everybody who's watching, get over there and subscribe right now.
yes, please do. And it's not that we don't have great content, but I will say that it is deliberate that we limit
Certain
our
channels.
time on YouTube because we still value and promote in-person events, just like we did. We just came back from CCon. And that that in-person community is very, very important to us. And again, we have to thank sort of thank Ken Hovind for getting us to the point where our channel is monetized, because I was able to have that debate simulcast on our channel. And we appreciate everyone who helps us get to a number of subscribers. But again, what's very, very important to Black non-believers is the fact that we are still engaging in person and in real time. And this is in real time, to absolutely be fair. But I tend to be very, very we tend to be very particular and dedicated to meeting people in person. One of our attendees, this was her 5th cruise that she's been on, her 5th being CCon. Now, she doesn't do social media that much, but she said that she builds her year. She plans her year around our convention. And that to me makes a huge difference when you are listening to the people within your neighborhoods, within your organizations, but with the people who support you. That makes a huge, huge difference. And we would love and I think many of us like to take in content that is free or low cost. But like Kelly said, even contributing just a few dollars helps a lot. It doesn't take that much. At BN, we like to try to help people get to our events. And we try to make them cost effective and reasonable, for people to attend. And so I think that, and let's just be real. And as Representative Jasmine Crockett says, let's be clear. Channels run by Black women tend to be under supported. They tend to be very, very much under supported. And I think that there is still that what's different between the 60s and now is that, or even like the 1860s and now, is that you don't need people physically shackled in order to prevent them from progress. There's a lot of internalized racism, a lot of internalized misogyny, internalized white supremacy from different areas, and from well-meaning people. And so it really does take rethinking and learning, and not shaming folks, but rethinking and learning how we engage and how we interact. And that makes a huge difference. So yes, Gigi, I'll call you Gigi or Kelly P for the purposes of the
That's fine.
show.
Gigi's
I know
great.
sometimes it may feel like, oh my gosh, we're not moving the needle at all. But that is probably when we're making the most that's probably when we're making the most difference. Because
Okay.
remember, change doesn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
Oftentimes when things are outside of the news cycle, people don't realize that. Like movement work is tedious, it gets boring, you often feel like you're not. There are often changes that are slower to come than we think.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that because I think we're so used to, as human beings, we're conditioned to wanting either instant or quick results or instant gratification, and that's not how things work. It takes a long, just like it took the right 50 years to dismantle Roe v. Wade. As soon as it became law, they started working at it. They started chipping at it. So they took their time to make sure that they put candidates in place. And when people think that voting didn't make a difference, even during Trump's first term, he got his Supreme Court picks, and then more Supreme Court picks now, to where now it's stacked. So people
Mhm.
don't realize that it
Mhm.
is incremental and it's layered, and that's exactly how we need to combat it. So it's I think that it's important that we continue to do the work that we do, even when it feels like we're not making a difference. But the truth of the matter is we are.
Okay. Very good. And I would like to just play up Maya Atkinson at this point. Um, you mentioned the systemic racism, and I have racist tendencies, and Maya has helped correct me at times. Although I would say Maya is a bit too gentle. Um, and I know that even though I was not brought up to be racist, my parents were some of the most liberal people around, because I never even met a black person until I was an adult. Um, it's just not there. I don't understand it all the time.
I mean, you watch certain TV shows and stuff you watch and different things. Because I was
Right.
raised watching All in the Family. I love that
Mm-hmm.
show.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my dad as a black man.
Mm.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so I was used to
Yeah.
seeing people of all colors, and which was probably good. I was raised by a very racist stepfather, but fortunately, none of it took with me. But as I did get older, I realized that some of these, like you're kind of like indoctrinated into things. You know what I mean? You're just, and so I realized that some of the things that I thought were innocent or said that were thought were innocent were actually hurting people. So, and it just like probably you did too, Gg. And I think it's a lot of people who are our age find themselves in that way because they have been indoctrinated into it by their parents from the 60s and the 50s. So I always like to tell people it's not about what you did in the past. It's about making yourself better every single day, and that's what's really
Right.
more important than anything else. Just to be better every day. So don't. So I guess don't dwell on your past. Just get better. Is my advice.
Great. Mandisa, you mentioned that your husband was personally affected by the layoffs and the cuts. Do you want to share what happened to him?
Sure. So my husband, Craig, well, technically he's still an active employee, but he was a contracting officer for General Services Administration, which were basically the landlords for the federal government. It's one of the largest agencies. He, along with thousands of other federal employees, were forced to retire. They got the RIF notice. They got that fork in the road email. So they couldn't, they couldn't, the administration couldn't fire him and his coworkers. Um, because they had too much time with the government. He was a federal employee for over 30 years. And he didn't have a poor work record. So what they had to do was they offered them a deferred retirement package. So basically, he was forced to retire along with so many other people. Part of the problem now, though, is that since the government is shut down, both federal employees who are on administrative leave and also who are still active are not getting paid. Mm-hmm. So it's more than just the folks who need like the SNAP benefits and other government services. It's also federal employees who are being impacted. And so our household is impacted by that. Like I said, I do my work with BN. I also work as well, but this has had really a devastating impact on him. He might not he won't admit that it has, but he already suffers from a chronic condition. He has sickle cell anemia. And so I am his caregiver. Ever since he got that notice in March, his health has declined. He has been on a steady decline. And it's the shock of being forced to retire well before your time. He was planning to retire in 5 years, but being forced out of your job or being forced out of his job has really had an impact on him. And there's something to be said about the mental health and the crisis of mental health that this administration is causing people, in addition to people worried about how they're going to pay their bills, how they're going to eat, as well as how, if they're even going to live. Because one thing I've always said is that more people are going to die under this administration. And I truly do think that is the case. And like you said, I think that is intentional. There are some folks who have genocide on their minds. And, they may not just say it, but, considering that there are people who said they've admired Hitler, right? And this is a matter of fact. People who work for this administration, who work in the federal government now, who have said things that they're who have voiced or typed their admiration for these regimes, shows that they want people to die. And we just can't. It's important for people to understand that it's more than just a single issue, and it's more than just a certain segment of the population that is being impacted. There are a number of people who are being impacted, and yes, this does impact me and my family personally. And so now, it's really, really disturbing. And like Kelly said, I grew up in the projects in New York. My mama, I came from a single parent household. We received food stamps and benefits, and my mother went to school and worked because there were 3 of us, me and my brothers. But yeah, I know. We weren't one of those families who were just simply dependent on the system, like most families aren't. That is right. Such a stereotype. It's also a stereotype and a misconception that it's just Black folks and people of color who are on food stamps. The truth is that the majority of folks who need assistance, like part of what Kelly said, of the elderly and also white people. Per capita, there are more white people who receive these benefits. And so, for folks to not even understand how harmful this is, and if they voted for this thinking that it wasn't going to impact them, shame on them.
Yeah. There's a lot of people on SNAP benefits where I live at, and I am not exaggerating when I say you can count the Black families in my county on your fingers. And probably half my county is on SNAP, because there's just not a lot. There's just a lot of poverty here. There's no jobs. I'm out in the middle of the sticks, So yeah, you're absolutely right, Mandisa. And I think, and there's this narrative that's been pushed that it's it's the that Ronald Reagan stereotype of the black woman welfare queen who keeps having children to stay on welfare. And we all know that's a lie. I was going to get real emotional there for a second. I had to drop myself, but it's so like ingrained into people's head that or at least a certain portion of our society's head that wants to believe that that's true. And it goes back to that victimhood I was talking about before. I can't have good things because of that woman over there, and they're not thinking about that's my grandpa too, that's getting hurt by it. That's grandma that's getting hurt by it. So and I think it's really important for us, people like us, to go out there and remind people who it is that are getting SNAP benefits, that it's not these stereotype memes that are being pushed by the GOP, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sorry. I went a little off.
No, you're perfectly fine. And I think it is important. We've always, those of us who are into history and who have sort of studied like public policy and how these things have worked in the US. When we talk about white privilege, we know that, it is understood that there are a lot of white folks who grew up poor. A lot of them didn't have, they had to work just as much as many of us. The difference, though, is that there is now, depending on your your ethnicity, you could be discriminated against historically, right? It's interesting to think that some black folks don't know that, about certain white ethnicities like the Irish, who were discriminated against, at one point in time, the Italians who were discriminated against, Jewish folks who were discriminated against. That is very, very well documented. Just as much as, the part of the difference, though, is the institutional factors that impact Black folks and other people of color, especially those of us who are darker, because there were laws put in place to effectively disfranchise us. But it's, white privilege is that you can still, no matter how poor you are, and this administration is proving it, that you don't have to be qualified. You can be a Fox News host and have absolutely one of the worst records and get this and be appointed this position and get rid of people who have decades of service, people of color who had decades and worked their asses off. It is apt. They're seeing it now. That is the privilege that we are seeing right in front of us now.
You just have to be a sycophant. That's all. Praise their leader.
Cynthia says, I had no idea, this comment that Cynthia's brought up. Welfare queen, especially when Black people could not even get SNAP until 1965, when white people could get it in the 1930s. Black people were not eligible for SNAP until 1965?
I'm just going to go with Cynthia on that. She's pretty sharp.
Yeah, I'm sure she's right.
I'm gonna look into. Now I have to look into it afterwards because that's horrifying.
Because we have to remember that after slavery and legal slavery and Reconstruction ended, there was the sharecropping system that lasted for so many years, and which also set a lot of Black folks into a lot of debt. But also, there was also a lot of Black entrepreneurship. Part of the reason why there were so many lynchings was that, when this notion that, that Black folks have never worked hard and pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps is an absolute lie.
Oh, yeah.
There has always been an emphasis on education and making sure that we have better for our communities. And that was a threat to a lot of people back in those times. And it's a threat to folks now. So when we think about, yes, there were a lot of Blacks who were denied those services. And also institutionally because, again, because of those systems of of sharecropping and effectively disfranchising, especially poor folks, and keeping them dependent on practically slave labor. There's a lot of history that a lot of folks don't know about the fight for labor rights, especially among Black folks. So, yeah.
In addition to that, Black people were also enslaved through the prison system, particularly in the Deep South.
Yes.
Black people were arrested for the most ridiculous things, vagrancy, and sentenced to hard labor. And white people got free slave labor from these prisoners, people that were just picked up for the most ridiculous things.
It's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
People died so you could have an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
Yeah. If nobody knows who they are, go look up the Haymarket. Go look up the Haymarket affair and see what happened there, because that was a particular case of people dying just so you could have an 8-hour workday and get the weekends off. So
yeah, I do want to mention, we talked about the senior citizens and things getting the SNAP. Also the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
We care about military so much, but they are strongly, once they get retired and out of the military, we forget about them as well. It's another group that does not get, that are treated unfairly. But one thing with the system, when it comes to the welfare and the Black welfare recipient women, many of us, like I know, like my grandma, when my grandfather left, it left my grandma raising 4 children by herself. So she had to receive help. They were not, at that time, she could not have anything of value. They made her stay in people's basements and attics. If she stayed at her own house, they wouldn't give her anything. If you show any form of a man, they wouldn't give you anything. So in order for Black women to get it at that time, they had to be low poverty. If they had any amounts of any form of wealth, or it was sad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they had to look poor, raggedy, to get anything.
One thing I'm beginning to wonder is if the real reason that Trump is sending troops to some of the major cities is anticipation of food riots. If he's going to starve people out and he's anticipating food riots.
My son, for about the last 3 years or so, has been saying that the U.S. is only one economic crisis away from being a fascism.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he's so totally right. I don't know. It does almost seem like they're pressing that economic crisis to happen. I don't know that if they do that, and if that's the game plan, I don't know that it will play out the way they want it to, because if it happens, it's going to happen because of them, and people know that. They were Trump was really controlling the narrative for quite a while. Let's face it, and I think it seems like it's starting to change. People are starting. There's always 1/3 are going to vote to the left, 1/3 is going to vote for the right, but those people in the middle you have to reach. And I think a lot of those, like I was saying before, a lot of them have buyer's remorse over that, because they were a one issue voter, but or they didn't check things out enough, and now they're not liking what's happening. So I think we're going to see him losing the narrative. We're going to start taking it back, and that's something that we really, really need to do. We need to control the narrative. And I always say that the right is good because they come up with really good bumper sticker slogans really quick, and the left never does. So I think we need to get better at that. Let's get better bumper slogans.
Well, one thing I think that we're going to need to be watching out for is gay rights. The Supreme Court wants to go after Obergefell next. And I think that the extreme right is going to make that their next litmus test is, would you overthrow Obergefell if elected? Oops.
What happened to Mandy?
She didn't want to be involved in this one, I guess. No,
No,
I'm
I
just,
think
I'm
it's
just
possible.
joking.
It's possible that
Oh
I
no.
accidentally booted her. It's possible. We've been having trouble with the echo, and it's
Yeah.
even echoing on Kelly and myself, unless I mute you, Kelly King. And so I've been muting and unmuting you from time to time to try to keep the volume right. And I might have accidentally kicked Mandisa in the process. So hopefully she'll be right
Yeah,
back.
because a few times I've been meaning to mute myself, and I noticed you muted me before I got a chance to.
Oh, no. Mandisa put a note in the private chat. I'm going to switch to my phone. My laptop is battery low. Okay. So
Okay,
she's
there we go.
coming
That's
back.
why we lost her.
Okay. So it wasn't my fault. Good.
It's always good to know when you didn't do something, right?
Right. Right.
One thing I do want to say this, please, that does not mean to stop voting.
Yes.
I need you to come out and vote. A lot of people, their answer is, well, I'm not going to vote because I don't like either one of the candidates, which is my thought process in a lot of times. But I still do vote. But I'd be like, I don't like either one of these people that's running. Neither one of them are really giving us the rights that we need. They don't really care about the regular people. Why do we only have two-party system? I mean, we have the independent people, but that's an issue with me because they still not going to have a chance to win.
Yeah,
I understand that.
we need to prop up a third party and get enough money behind a third party that it can be a viable party.
We need to make a third and a fourth party at once.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we make a third party, it's probably just going to draw votes away from one of the two existing parties, right?
I think it comes down to funding. You know, the Democrats and the Republicans are very well funded, and anytime a third party comes in, they just don't have the funding.
Yeah, I get that, but what I'm saying is that let's say they do get funding, right? That like let's say it was the Green Party, they got a lot of funding and they could be competitive. What they would be doing was just drawing votes away out
Yeah,
of the Democratic Party. So we need to have a fourth party that would even out and draw votes away from the GOP as well, right? So we could be more well rounded.
and
But then,
it would need
but
to
then,
it would need to split the conservatives. You'd need something like the Tea Party.
yeah, right, exactly. And then you're forced to build coalitions, just like British Parliament, right,
Mm-hmm.
or Canadian Parliament as well.
What are your thoughts on that, Mandisa?
Coalition government.
I think it's a very, very good idea in theory. I think that we have become too codependent on the two-party system. And yes, independent, third parties do tend to take away from Democratic votes. So, or even, or, well, I would say Republican votes as well, but yeah, Democratic votes. So it's, that's always tricky when it comes to, when it comes to like the parties and that area of politics. I couldn't say I was radical about any of it, but I do think that yes, there definitely does, or the Constitution just needs to be the laws just need to be enforced, even for those who are in power. There are certain folks who need to know that they are not above the law.
Yeah,
And that's what's happening right now, is that the person is getting away with it, because right about now there are folks in certain parties who are pretty much only serving their own self-interest and did not carry out their due diligence to make sure that this person couldn't be elected president again.
We need a court system that says that you're not above the law just because you're in office.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yep. Well, we are nearly out of time, and there are some things I want to plug before we go. So, Mandisa, why don't you take a few minutes and tell everyone about Black Nonbelievers, what it is that you do, what it is that you have to offer?
Absolutely. So, Black Nonbelievers is headquartered in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and Kelley is over our Detroit affiliate. Cynthia McDonald is over our Chicago, our Chi-Town affiliate. And we offer a caring, friendly, and informative community. And again, we just came back from our annual cruise convention called BNC Con, where Dr. Leo Igwe, who is a very long time Nigerian humanist activist, was our main speaker. So we offer a community of folks who, and we speak to, well, we let, first of all, we absolutely let other Blacks and allies know that there are more of us out here. They are not alone. And we offer, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we host a live show in the cut every first and third Saturday of each month. And we also post videos. We also have videos from our previous events. And we host in-person sessions. We host virtual sessions. We co-sponsor a student scholarship with the Secular Student Alliance. We co-sponsor and collaborate on events with our fellow organizations as well as content creators. We are instrumental in amplifying and also increasing the number of Black non-religious voices out there through research, through documentaries, through any means possible, as Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. And so we've been doing this now. We're going on 15 years in 2016, and we will be celebrating big. And we want you to celebrate with us and can help us continue our outreach, our programming, our support for education and community. So please donate to our organization at blacknonbelievers.org. We are 501c3, and help us continue to reach the folks who need us, who need to know and understand that there are more Black folks out here across the diaspora. And there are allies that we work with, such as you, Kelly L. and Gigi, who work to help us get the word out, who help us get the word out there. So we do a lot, as long story short. And I really have to appreciate our team for all of the work that they do in helping us amplify and continue to grow our presence and visibility and community.
And there is a link in the description to the website for Black Nonbelievers where you can get information on if you want to donate, if you want to get involved, if you want some resources. All of that is on the website, which is in the link.
Yes.
Kelly, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to add?
Which one, me or?
I'm sorry. Kelly King. I'm sorry.
I want to thank you for letting me be on here today. I think this was a very needed discussion. And like she said, I am the fitted leader for the Metro Detroit group of Black Nonbelievers. I'm also the treasurer for Michigan Atheists as well. And I'm also run a podcast that we stream Monday through the Daily Atheist Morning Channel on Mondays from 9 to 11 with 7 other wonderful atheist content creators as well. So I'm trying to move my feet, and I've spent 2 or 3 years mostly in the being spotlight, which I'm still there, but I've been branching up, trying to get my footing and finding my own space and things like that. Because she's like, get out, find your own way. So I've been trying to do my own little thing, but being is my first love, though, and I love the organization. I love the mission statement, and I love what we have been achieving so far for these 15 years. And side note, Being and me are twins. The organization was implemented on my birthday, so that's just
cool. Cool.
That's just another
That's
side
awesome.
note.
Yes, Kelly has done such a wonderful job of reviving our Detroit area presence. And the one thing that I always encourage folks, especially, I mean, it is very difficult. It takes a lot to put in online content, but the one thing I always say is that if this is what you want to do, you have to be about it, and you have to get out there and connect. And I'm not the only voice out here, even though Cynthia says I'm the most famous Black atheist, right? But I'm not the only one, and I have never rested myself on just wanting to be the only one. So I've always wanted Kelly to have more of a visible presence and be able to speak to her experience and her activism in multiple spaces. And so this is what we encourage.
Okay, very good. Kelly L., final thoughts.
I was talking earlier about it. It doesn't take a lot, just do little things. I'm sure. And again, you're probably sick of me hearing me say this, but you've probably all heard of the butterfly effect. Butterfly twitches its wings and there's a hurricane on the other side of the world. So I'm just encouraging everybody to go out there and be a butterfly.
Okay, very good. Couple of announcements that I have. Number one, there's a fundraiser going on right now organized by Purple Rhymes with Orange for Mom NATO. Mom NATO was very influential in helping to move Lavender Lady to New York when she needed that. And there were expenses that were promised to be reimbursed to her, which never were reimbursed. And now Mom NATO is experiencing some financial difficulty. So if you are in a position to help out Mom NATO, there is a link in the description to the GoFundMe for Mom NATO. Second announcement, my guest next week is going to be Mindful Living. And you've probably never heard of him, and that's okay. He is going to be an up-and-coming voice in the atheist community. He is a new content creator, and he is a former pastor and missionary. He was originally born in Thailand. So it is wonderful to have more Asian representation in our community. And his analysis of things is absolutely astounding. Even Paula Gia noticed him and made a comment on one of his videos of a great analysis. So come next week. It's his first time being on someone else's channel. Learn a little bit about what's going on his channel and meet Mindful Living. Thank you, all of you, for coming. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on this important topic.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, it was a pleasure.
It was definitely a pleasure for me.
It was certainly a pleasure for me. I got to be here with three beautiful women. How can I complain about that? That's awesome.
The thorn in the roses.
You always know what to say.
Live your life.